Welcome back to Central Valley Talk, where we celebrate what's good about Fresno and the whole Central Valley. There's so many good things going on that you may not know about, but we're here to expose them, to let you know what's happening, what people are doing good in our community. Heroes, sometimes we call them. Our next guest is Cherry Robert. I told you I get it wrong. Cherry Robertson.
No worries.
She got married and changed her name. That's hard. I have enough trouble with names. But you're doing some good things in the community.
Yeah, so, I've been a drug and alcohol counselor now for almost 7 years. And, I've moved from place to place, different programs. I've worked in private insurance, Medi-Cal programs. Now I'm currently with the methadone clinic.
Methadone clinic.
Yeah, and I never thought I would work for a methadone clinic. I kind of had some bias. Some personal bias against it before I ever got the job, and I have actually learned a lot since working there about how it works and really like what's created the bias for people.
And I think that's why we're having you here today, is just kind of explain things. Once people understand it a little more, they don't have that bias. It removes the bias from that. And tell us what goes on. First of all, somebody starts being hooked on heroin. Is it just heroin or other?
So basically any opiate. What I'm finding with a lot of my patients personally is they had some kind of injury at some point in their life, and their doctor prescribed them some kind of opiate painkiller, Vicodin, Percocet, Norcos, whatever it might have been. And, after a certain time, they can't get that medication anymore. Yeah. And so, their body starts going through physical withdrawals. Mm-hmm. And those withdrawals are just so intense for some people. It's like
they're
having
debilitating. You're kind of out of the.
Have you ever had COVID?
Yeah.
So think about what you felt like when you were on COVID and multiply that by a lot. Right. And that's what it feels like for them physically when they're having these withdrawals. Their stomach is cramping, they're sweating, they're diarrhea, vomiting. In some cases, they can have hallucinations and things. And so, it's really hard. And so these people that have been getting this prescription from a doctor, now they're cut off and they start having all these physical symptoms. And it's like, what do I do? Well, let me go buy some pills from somebody.
Right.
And
they're out there and they're available. So not just heroin addicts, but also opioid addicts. I just saw that series with, what's the guy's name, Keaton? He played Batman in another movie. Anyway, the series, it's a drama series. He was the town's doctor, and he got hooked on, he was in a car crash, he got hooked on the opioids. And he helped as many patients get hooked on them because the drug manufacturers told you, oh no, it's okay, they're not addicted. Next thing you know, a big chunk of our country is hooked on opioids. And you can't get off of them. The withdrawals are just debilitating.
It is. And so that's where methadone treatment comes into play. And we don't just do methadone at the clinic. We also do Suboxone, for people who would like to take that route. And so with the methadone though, there's this huge stigma on methadone clinics and just medically managed treatment in the first place about how, we're just replacing one drug with another drug, and the reality is they're getting a prescription medication to alleviate those withdrawals. But what people don't see is that these people are required to do counseling every week. And that's really the part that makes a difference. It's
not just a drive-by, here's your replacement drug, get out of here. They have to go to the counseling and treatment and stuff like that. Now, I asked you this before we went on the air, but heroin addicts or opioid addicts, they have trouble holding down a job, and they always have to be stealing money to buy their drugs and stuff like that. But it appears that the methadone gets them off of that, so now they could get back into society, have a job, take care of their family, things
absolutely like that. Yeah, that's the other part. When you're that deep in addiction, you start committing crimes or you start doing things you wouldn't normally do to be able to get that medication or that drug or whatever it is that you're using, whether it's fentanyl, heroin, whatever opioid is on the street. You just need to feel well. Right. So you'll resort to anything. So the methadone clinic gives people an opportunity to feel well so that they can do the counseling, so they can find a new job, so they can address their homelessness.
Helps you get back into society.
Yes.
In a balanced, controlled way, controlled by a doctor.
Absolutely.
And counselors. That's fascinating that you guys do that. So.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I had a bias to it when I first became a counselor.
There's a stigma to methadone.
There is, and more than that, it's the whole choice versus disease argument. Mm-hmm. You choose to start using, but the addiction becomes a disease of the brain.
Yeah.
And that's understandable. Like, psychological changes happen from the continued doses of chemicals that you put into your body every day. But at the same time, at the end of the day, getting well from that is also a choice. And these people that are in the methadone clinic, a lot of them are making a choice to try to get well in whatever way they can.
Do you see successes? Do you see a lot of successes?
I wouldn't say a lot. Unfortunately, the recidivism rate is very high for substance use treatment. People are constantly relapsing and coming back. But I have seen a few people who have tapered off the methadone and who have not come back to the clinic yet since I've worked there.
Now, is it, they can't sneak around and do both, right? Because they have drug testing?
So, unfortunately, there are people who do both.
Yeah.
We do have people in the clinic who aren't serious about it. They're still out there using. They might miss medicating on a daily basis. And to just be realistic, like, you can't help everyone. Unfortunately, going back to that whole it's a choice to recover thing, there's people who just don't want to.
Right.
And they may use the clinic to, stay well enough to get through the next day until they can get their next fix. And that's where the stigma comes from, is those people create this blanket stereotype of everybody. But there's people in the clinic who are working, who have successful jobs, who take care of their families, who are on the methadone for the time being so that they can use their counseling sessions to learn the tools and skills that they need to be successful in their recovery in the long run.
Sounds like the hardest thing ever to get over the heroin.
It can be, but people do it.
It just gives you a step.
It does, and that's exactly what it is. And the reality is, people need help right now. We have a huge opioid crisis going on. We have
again,
fentanyl.
It's not that they were out party people or trying to be rock stars or something. These are people got legitimate prescriptions from their doctor for a medical need they had, and maybe the opioid industry fooled us, or we misunderstood. However we got here, these aren't bad people. They're just regular people who, many of them got on the opioids for health reasons.
Yeah, and there are the people who were partying hard, or who started using in high school, or who just were doing it experimentally with friends that have become addicted. But we with this whole stigma, we throw this blanket stereotype that everybody's this type of person, and the reality is they're not. There's and the methadone treatment that we do, and it's not the only thing. Like I said, we also do Suboxone there. Unfortunately, we can't have patients on Suboxone unless they're clean off the opiates for a few days first. Because otherwise it sends them into precipitated withdrawals because it has naloxone in it, which is Narcan. So for that one, it's a lot more difficult for people to get on, but it's also easier to get off.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you're doing this. I'm glad you came and let us know about it, because I had a stigma, idea what methadone was all about, and you've changed my mind.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
One person at a time.
Yeah.
I could talk to you for hours. We're out of time, but any last thoughts for our viewers?
Just mainly if you or somebody needs help, don't be afraid to ask. There's people are scared to ask for help because they're scared of being judged. They're scared of that stigma. They're scared of being stereotyped, or they're scared of being, labeled as a criminal or a drug addict, when, they just need someone to say, hey, that's not a great thing. Maybe you're addicted to drugs. Maybe you're having problems, but there's help out there. So if you're willing to get the help, let's go get it.
That's wonderful. Cherry Robertson, we want you to come back every month or two and give us updates on these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot more to talk about. I know. We talked about a few things.
Yeah.
The Narcan, we want to talk about that sometimes, and other things, and we'll have you do that. You're our expert on this.
Well,
Cherry
thank you.
Robertson.
Thank
By
you.
the way, she's a certified alcohol counselor and something research, social...
Yeah, certified drug and alcohol counselor, and then I'm a sociological researcher. So I recently graduated with my bachelor's degree in sociology, and doing a research study for one of my final classes has inspired me to start my own personal research study.
Do your own research study. I'm proud of you, Cherry Robertson.
Thank
We
you.
will be back with more Central Valley Talk right after this.